Well, good evening. Thanks for coming tonight. So tonight we're going to do something a little slightly different from the usual format. We're going to learn and practice a few different forms of meditation throughout the discussion. So a little more meditating and kind of talking in between a few shorter meditations. And then we'll still do a little longer meditation near the end. So I've talked a lot about the spiritual aspects of Zen Buddhism and meditation, like how we can use it to see our mind and attain enlightenment. To me, those are the greatest rewards, but they're lofty goals. Attaining enlightenment can be very difficult, and it can take a long time of dedicated practice to achieve. However, there are many other benefits that you can get from meditating just a little bit every day. The most basic form of Zen, in the most basic form of Zen meditation, we sit quietly and focus on a mantra to clear our mind. When your mind is clear, you can think clearly and make better decisions for yourself. When you think clearly and make better decisions, you can take actions which are more beneficial to yourself, to the people around you, and the world you live in. My teacher used to describe this process by saying, clear mind, clear thinking, clear action. That means that a clear mind leads to clear thinking and clear action. We can also practice moving meditation. In this practice, we use our actions as a mantra. By completely focusing on whatever the task you're doing, you can keep your mind from wandering off into the past, the present, or the future, or into some other hypothetical situation that you can conjure up. When your thoughts start to snowball from rolling around in your head, it can lead you to feel stressed, anxious, depressed, or overly emotional. In any of these states, it's hard to make good decisions. If you can completely focus on what you're doing, you can keep all of your extraneous thoughts from interfering with the task at hand. When you're operating like this, you'll be more efficient, more productive, and less likely to make mistakes in whatever you're doing. The actions you take will be clear. By staying focused on your actions, you can clear out the irrelevant thoughts and think clearly about what you're doing. If you stay completely focused on what you're doing, you will clear your mind. In this way, clear actions produce clear thinking and a clear mind. So it works both ways. A clear mind makes clear thinking and clear action, and clear action makes clear thinking and a clear mind. Now we're going to move into practicing some different types of sitting meditation. We'll start with the breathing technique like we do every week. So just try to start by breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper than you usually do. Visualize your heart in the center of your chest as you breathe. As you listen to me, I want you to slow down your breath a little bit more and breathe a little bit deeper. Feel your breath coming in through your nose and mouth, collecting all of the energy from your brain and moving it from your head into your heart. Imagine now that you're breathing with your heart. The purpose is to try to align our mind, heart, and body. You can also place your hand on your heart and close your eyes if you'd like. And just keep breathing a little bit slower and a little bit deeper as I talk. This is a technique you can use to relax or reset yourself whenever you feel nervous or anxious, or whenever you feel like you need to switch gears throughout the day from the different activities you're doing. You can use it when you wake up, before you enter a stressful meeting, before you go to sleep, or before you meditate. So let's just take a few more moments and take some slow and deep breaths. Now we're going to try something a little bit different than usual. A meditation on gratitude. We're going to take a few minutes to remind ourselves of the reasons we have to be grateful and say thank you in our mind. For example, I always like to remind myself to be thankful for my health, my family, my friends, and my teachers. No matter how bad things get in my life at times, I always like to remind myself that I still have plenty to be thankful for. This helps me keep a positive perspective and outlook in every circumstance. Now I want you to close your eyes for a few minutes and think about the things in your life that you're thankful or grateful for. I'm going to hit the Mok Talk for this one. So just a couple minutes. Was that enough time for you, or did you? Okay. Yeah, that's where I got to too. So, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of things I'm not thinking about, but yeah. And sometimes when you start thinking very broadly, but then you can get more specific too. So rather than just your friends, you could think about specific people or something like that. So next, I want to focus on forgiveness. Here we're going to take a moment to forgive ourselves and the others in our lives. This is a chance to acknowledge our mistakes and the mistakes of others that have caused us harm and express our forgiveness. This is not to make an excuse for the harm that's been done or the person that caused the harm. It's more to acknowledge that harboring feelings of anger, hatred, and resentment can prevent us from being compassionate, and this can stunt our personal growth. This doesn't mean you have to welcome someone back that has harmed you in any way. You don't have to welcome them back into your life, or that you should continue to expose yourself to harm in the same ways. It's more about empowering yourself to remove the emotional shackles that the harm may have caused you, so that you can move on from that burden. So let's take a few minutes to forgive ourselves and others for the mistakes and the harm that's been done. Let's also pray that none of us continue to make these mistakes which cause unnecessary suffering. So let's close our eyes for a couple minutes and focus on forgiveness. Now we're going to focus on our prayers. You can pray for yourself the world, and the universe. I usually pray for good health, happiness, and success in my endeavors. I also pray for the good fortune of my family, my friends, teachers, and everyone in the world. You can pray for enlightenment or anything else you want. Just be careful what you ask for. When you pray, the air collects your prayers and your thoughts and brings them out into the world with your breath. That's where they create potential. The more you pray, the more the winds of fortune will be at your back, filling the metaphorical sails for your journey. So let's take a few minutes to close our eyes and remind ourselves of our prayers. So the gratitude and prayer meditations are something I do every day before I bow and chant. So yeah, you do that too. So you do bowing chanting.
Do bowing chanting, yes, but the grateful part I can do a lot more.
So before I would do my first 3 bows, I would always say the prayers and the thanks for the things, and then I would start the 3 bows. Then I would sit and meditate, and then hopefully carry that energy through the whole bowing and chanting ceremony we would do together.
I like that.
But I've continued that in my own practice outside of the temple as well, because I still do the bowing and chanting every day.
I do the gratitude and my thanking praying before bed. Like that's like the ritual.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a good time too.
I use my like essential oils to
Oh yeah.
spray my pillow and
Oh, that's
just
great.
Oh.
Yeah. Love this.
Sounds so
Yeah.
comfy.
Yeah.
I just say a few things that I'm grateful. It could be like the same thing every day or like
Sure.
something different that happened in the day. Just like it could be something small or something big or.
I have a pretty
I like that.
set amount of prayers like I do,
Yeah.
but then I get into some very specific things too, depending on where what's going on. So, but I have like general kind of like praying for good health, happiness, enlightenment, those kind of things. And then the welfare of my friends and family and teachers. I always say a prayer for Sabu Nim, who is my teacher as well. So that's just some ideas. I try not to. This is a personal preference, but I try not to make it like too much about material things. More just about. Of course, I pray to always have I just say good fortune, and that can be broad, as far as like the fortunes in your life and all of the things that you need to survive and thrive. So, so I think it's powerful, just to remind yourself of that stuff. It kind of keeps you on a course, and for me, it sets a mindset of compassion, graciousness, and then also just keeping you focused on your goals. The forgiveness one, I don't do that every single day. It's something more I focus on more whenever I feel anger or resentment over something. So I try, especially then, I try to remind myself to forgive them, even if, honestly, even if they don't necessarily deserve it.
Yeah.
Like, it's more for myself just to let it go and not be.
Different
I do, yeah. I don't generally, I don't feel like I need to forgive a lot of people, but there have been parts of my life where I really would hang on to that stuff. And just, I could actually feel it like interfering with the things the positive things I was trying to do in my life, because I'd be dwelling on negative feelings towards other people. But that's just showing you, like, they maybe did that intentionally to hurt you, for instance, in some cases, maybe unintentionally. But if they were intending to hurt you, like, they're succeeding still, even when they're not there. And I don't want to give that any power. I want to let it go and move on. I don't want to carry that with me. Especially if they have no bearing in my life other than what I'm giving it, because they're not here. So I think it can be really powerful to allowing you to move on. Of course, if and then here's another one, like forgiving yourself for your own mistakes. I think that's one people get hung up on a lot, is thinking they need to be perfect and they screwed something up, and then they hold on to that feeling for a long time, and it gets in the way of their other goals. So, you can acknowledge your mistakes and just try to move on from them and try not repeat them. So, yeah, like carrying the anger and the resentfulness and the hatred, it's like carrying poison. You're poisoning yourself, and you're giving someone else power over you, and you want to take that power back. And if you have hurt someone, I definitely suggest apologizing to them. I think that is a very powerful thing too. So I've been on both sides of those, in my life. And yeah, I've always tried, when I've had the opportunity, to apologize. But yeah, make sure it's really sincere and not about just making yourself feel better. Like, that, because then it might not be, if that's obvious to the person, it might not be received well, So, yeah. So today we planted the seeds of our gratitude, forgiveness, and our prayers in our mind. Now we can move into the traditional mantra meditation to clear our mind of all the thoughts we've been growing, the thoughts that we've been growing in our minds like weeds. So we want to clear all those out. And this will allow the seeds that we want to nurture to grow and to become the beautiful flowers we imagine. So we'll do the mantra meditation to clear our mind. For this one, as you know, we'll sit facing the wall with our legs crossed, our hands, right hand, left hand, touching thumbs. And we'll repeat a mantra in our mind. If your eyes were open, they'd be at a 45-degree angle looking at the floor, but we're going to close our eyes. If you get uncomfortable, you can stretch or stand up. Just try to be respectful of the people meditating around you. So the mantra is the focal point of our meditation. It's usually a word or a phrase that we repeat within our mind. If you try not to think, thoughts will inevitably come into your head. So by focusing on the mantra, you can use it to push out all of the other thoughts. As you meditate, only concentrate on the mantra. If another thought comes into your mind, let it pass and return to focusing on the mantra. A good mantra to use during meditation practice is Kwansam Bosal. Kwansam Bosal is the name of the bodhisattva of love and compassion in Korean Zen. She's often depicted with thousands of eyes and hands and is said to be able to see the suffering of everyone and help those who call out her name. Using this mantra will bring compassionate energy towards you while you meditate. And drawing this compassionate energy towards you while you're meditating is like giving water to your seeds, which will help them grow. So with that said, we're going to stand up and turn around, and this will be a longer meditation. So today we talked about sitting and moving meditation, as well as breathing, gratitude, forgiveness, and prayers. Um, these are all things you can practice on your own and try and incorporate into your own routine. So if you learn to incorporate these things into your daily routine, it can help you improve your mental health and mindset. Another form of moving meditation that you can use to help improve your quality of life is exercise. Exercise is another way you can practice focusing on your actions. It could be anything like running, biking, weightlifting, yoga, or martial arts. I'd recommend doing a form of exercise that you enjoy doing. It also doesn't have to be hard physical activity. You can switch it up. Some days it could be gentle recovery exercise like walking. But if you can incorporate 15 to 20 minutes of exercise into your day, it'll help you to maintain your health and help you learn how to meditate on your actions. And again, same with meditation. I'd say if you can do it every day, even if it's just light exercise, just having that structure will really change your health and your physical health as well as your mental health. So just going for a walk can be a sacred experience. If you pay close attention to everything that's going on around you, if you resist trying to label things and try not to attach any thoughts to anything that you're observing, it can have a profound effect on your experience. So try to ignore like the conceptual boundaries that we create through thinking, such as like there's a bird or a tree, even thoughts as simple as that. Just try and see everything for what it is and recognize that that experience is an exchange and an interaction between everything around you and that you're a part of it. Try to be aware and observe everything that's going around through all of your senses. That practice can help you develop heightened awareness and a sense of unity with the world we live in. Yeah.
So, like headphones and listening to music while you walk and meditating, probably not a good thing.
I think it can be okay, but you won't have the same experience because you will be cutting off one of your senses. So part of it would be listening, just listening to whatever's going around you as kind of the soundtrack of what you're doing. Then you're not introducing something else into it. You could be walking down the street and someone could be playing music outside of their car, but that's a little different. I think it's more about just trying to be rather than to add anything to that experience. And just take a different approach. You can walk with headphones on, of course, but I'm suggesting you might find, if you try and experience that way, you might find it a little different and a little more enriching in certain ways.
Well, I've heard it referred to as you want to, when you're listening to music while you're running, you're sort of disassociating from the moment, but what you really want to do is be associating with the moment by like not distracting yourself with extra stimulation and just connect with like what it feels like and the sound of your breath and
Yeah.
footsteps and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm kind of trying to suggest you try, but also like if someday you feel like putting your headphones on, don't let that stop you from going for a walk just because you feel like you have to do it a certain way. But if you take a walk in the way I'm suggesting, it'll be a different, more rich experience for your senses because you'll start to connect things in a different way. You'll see the connections, you'll hear the connections. And it can be a more rich experience rather than shutting off one of your senses and putting in something else to it. So give it a try. Let me know if there's a difference. Try it both ways. I run sometimes with headphones on, so I'm not going to say it's bad or anything like that, but I think you can get a different experience out of it, and in that way I think it can make you feel more connected. And whereas I think especially if you have like noise canceling headphones with music, it can make you feel, even if you're running through something that's busy, like whether it's like a lot of stuff in nature or people outside, it kind of makes you feel disconnected. But you know, there can be different forms of meditation. Some days you want to just really focus on your actions, and maybe, you know, if you're exercising in a harder way, maybe you want to isolate yourself from some of those distractions and focus more on your motion. There's no wrong way to do it. I'm just suggesting, I think if you want the more like what I was referring to as like a sacred experience of connecting to the world around you, the more sense you have of it, everything, whether it's hearing, feeling the breeze, hearing a bird, hearing the leaves rustle, you miss those things when you have headphones on. And then you won't, you know, you can maybe see the leaves moves, but you don't hear them in the same way. And so it's not as deep of a sensory experience. And and more also just like, not, when I say dropping the conceptual ideas, I mean like, don't think of things as like a tree, you know, it's just something that's part of everything that you're a part of, you know. You're connected in some way to everything that's around you, and having all of your senses available will help you make those connections. But like I said, there's no wrong way to go for a walk. If you feel like you need music one day to get you out there, go for it. These aren't rigid assignments, just different ways to think about things. But I'm glad you asked that question, because honestly, I think just if it's the difference between going for a walk every day and you feel like you need the headphones, then go for it. But, you know, once in a while, give it a try without them and see if it changes your experience. You might actually end up preferring it some days. So, like I know if I'm going to go for a hike up a mountain, I really want to hear everything that's going on. You know, it's different from life in the city, and you hear things. You like hear animals rustling in the woods that you can't see, you know. Different things like that. So, so exercise, going for a walk, I think is great. A lot of practices do walking meditation, you know, so rather than sitting, they walk and meditate at the same time. So that's a fairly common Zen practice as well. And usually that's just done in silence. I think in, you know, like walking around the temple.
Are they saying a mantra while they walk, or just walking?
I think they're most likely saying a mantra, yeah. But I think you can, there again, I think you can try it different ways. And when I do moving meditation though, like exercise for instance, I like the movements to be the meditation, to be the mantra. So trying to just really focus on what you're doing, you know. And when you're walking in nature, or, you know, like I said, going for a walk, everything around you becomes your mantra. You know, you're so focused on trying to sense everything that's going on around you. That becomes your focal point, and trying not to let the thoughts of different things in your life come in and out of your mind. And that's what I'm really trying to impart through all of these different meditation techniques, is that you are trying to learn how to apply them not just while you're consciously trying the meditation, but to every aspect of your life, so that whatever you're doing is the meditation. And that is when when you reach that state, it's like your mind can be clear all of the time. That's the ideal state. And then you're not letting your mind jump too far ahead in the future or thinking about things in the past. And that really just limiting your mind in that way to focus on what you're doing will really help with a lot of things people suffer from, like anxiety and depression, things like that. Because when you're focused on the moment, you're not having a chance to think about those things and let the emotions that you associate with them affect you. So that's what I am trying to do. And these are all just different forms of practicing focusing that eventually you want to apply to the other aspects of your life. So another way you can practice, which I say a lot, is doing an artistic practice. So whether it's painting, drawing, making music, writing, dance, really any creative process you enjoy or are curious about. So, and if you focus more on cultivating a consistent practice of creating without any expectations about the results, then you can learn to tap into a state of mind where your creations flow through you without overthinking. You know, if you're too focused on creating a perfect picture, just that thought is gonna get in the way of you creating a perfect picture, or, you know, drawing the perfect picture. It's better just to try a few times and not worry if it's perfect. And if you do it, if you're so focused on one, maybe you create in a slower way because you're so mentally constraining yourself. But if you just tried it 10 times, one of those might be exactly what you were trying to do. So so don't be afraid to make mistakes, you know, in that. So
Quote from one of my favorite designers. He said that great design comes from hard work and modest expectations. Sometimes just having modest expectations about what you're going to get out of your meditation is.
yeah, I would say, even lower expectations. You know, I guess if you're trying to please a client, you have to have some level of expectations and quality. But when you're creating, I think it's more important that you enjoy the process. And I think if you're in love with the process, then the results will come. It's a little different when you have a deadline and you're trying to do it for work. But this is, you know, if you do art for work, I even suggest doing something else that's not work, a different kind of art, you know, that maybe you don't have so much pressure on associated with it. So, so I like to do different forms of art. You know, if I'm gonna be drawing, maybe I'll just do some stuff that I don't feel so much pressure associated with it. Like before I do an illustration, you know, that I'm trying to do for my book or something, I'll just do a few sketches just to kind of get the juices flowing, to reach a flow state. And sometimes it takes me a few tries to get the translation between what I'm imagining and what I'm drawing. And I just like to give myself some time for that to form again, you know, that connection to form again, without the pressure of having to make the perfect drawing that's going to be printed or something like that. Because if you don't get it when your expectation is that way, sometimes it's becomes a lot easier to give up on it or say I'm not in the right frame of mind. But my experiences is you can kind of get yourself there if you just give yourself a little bit of cut yourself a little slack, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So and then generally, like, at some point when I'm just creating and without the pressure, I can reach a state of flow where I'm completely focused on what I'm doing. And that, when you feel that, that's a really high level of meditation. That means you're completely locked in on what you're doing. No thoughts are coming in the way. It almost feels like you can't make a mistake. But even in those states, I have made little mistakes, like sometimes the material doesn't cooperate in the right way. But then when I'm in that state, I'm like, well, I can fix that. I don't get so attached to the mistake. Like I'll think of a creative way to fix it. Yeah, so if you can engage in artistic practice on a regular basis, it can enhance your ability to keep your mind clear while you're meditating. So, or keep your mind clear while you're moving, I should say. It'll help you to learn to apply meditation to different forms of actions that you perform in your life. Even things like cooking, cleaning your room, doing your dishes, those can be turned into a meditation if you remain completely focused on what you're doing. So that's what I mean when you're just trying to learn how to apply the practice that you learned maybe through sitting, through doing exercise, and through doing art, and then you can start to see like how that applies and how it can be applied to the different things you're doing in your life that are more mundane. But I think when you're a little more, like when you're exerting yourself or when you're hyper-focused on creating something, it kind of forces you into that zone a little bit more. Whereas, I think, cooking, I definitely think a lot of people see that, and I do too, as an art form in itself. And that also has the pressure, that it forces you to focus because you don't want things to burn and you have to keep your eye on them. So
I definitely use all my senses when I cook. Like, I look at what it looks like, what it smells like, what it tastes like. I hear it.
Yeah.
Like,
Hear that sizzle.
yeah,
Know it.
yeah,
I definitely feel that when I cook.
you're making me want some Persian food right now.
That's exactly right. I made some Persian food last week, and I was like meditating. I feel like the whole time.
Yeah, so I think that's a good one, and that's something like it was never explicitly said this way, or maybe I think actually it was to me at certain times, but it's not like a lesson you get, a formal lesson. But cooking in the temple where I lived, it was part of the routine. You had to do it every week, and when Sabanim was there, there's a high expectation that it tasted good, like, and that he would tell like.
It's just right.
Yeah, like he could tell if you overcooked it or undercooked it, and that means you weren't focused, and he would be that would be his sign that he would get upset. He would actually like
Yeah.
pretty regularly complain if it wasn't cooked right.
Yeah.
What would you make?
Uh
Was it
ma-
Korean food or just like?
yeah, it was like it was usually rice, vegetables, tofu, things like that, soup. But it always had like a Korean spice in it, which he showed us how to make all that eventually. So yeah, so it was maybe like a stir fry or a soup or like he was actually really particular about the rice, like whether you put enough water, whether
He complimented my rice once. It's the only compliment I
yeah, no, I've seen him just flat out refuse to eat certain food because he could tell like it wasn't cooked up to a certain standard.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So
That's great.
yeah, it's never fun to be on the receiving end of that, but I've been there. But I too enjoy cooking. I think it even gets your taste, because like I cook things to taste, I'm not someone who uses recipes. I look at what I want to cook. I can kind of see from the options in the fridge, like these things will go good together. And I know, like, I imagine what the spice to go with it is going to be. Then I cook it, and then I like taste. I always like spice it or salt it or whatever to taste. Like, I'll taste it to make sure it's good before I before I decide that's enough or yeah. So I think that's good, yeah. But less rewarding sometimes to certain people, I guess. Cleaning your room, things like that, doing your dishes. No one likes to do the dishes, but those.
I love organizing. I hate dishes, but I love like organizing cabinets. And
But
if it gets too cluttered, I have to just like
Yeah. So there is a reward in there though, because you know, like if the dirty dishes are in the sink, that's gonna make you feel bad about it every time you walk by it.
It makes me feel horrible.
Yeah. So that you want to clean those because then you don't have that bad feeling anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just getting over the hump of like doing it, and then when you put them back and everything's neat and organized, it feels better and it makes you feel better when you walk in the room. And you're not like seeing dirty dishes, which is kind of one of the more gross things you can see,
Yeah.
like if they haven't been rinsed or anything like that. So just those things do have like a built-in reward, and you feel it when it's done, even though you might not acknowledge it, like, and you might procrastinate on certain things. But that's why I suggest you just always do it. Like when you do your laundry, take it out, fold it, put it away. When you cook, clean your dishes and put them back when you're done, because then every time you walk by, it kind of gives you a sense of peace that everything's in its place. And that in itself can be a meditation, and it's a reflection of your mind. You know everything is clear when it's put back in the right place. And you approach that process like a meditation. And then not only is your mind clear, but your environment in your house is clear too. So
So like procrastinating is kind of like anti-meditation, like
yeah.
putting it off, and like it's still in the back of your head, so you're always thinking about it. But like, it's like why do we always do that
yeah.
as humans? Like why do we try to avoid what needs to be done?
Yeah, those are the poisons in life are sickness. So like illnesses that come to you, that's something that will be like a poison to you. Anger becomes like a poison to you, and laziness,
Yeah.
and that also becomes like a poison to yourself as well. And there's no if you get sick, a lot of times they can just give you a pill, but if you're lazy, there's no pill for that. So
Spell that already.
well, I've never tried that one, but
Caffeine.
it does help, but sometimes it doesn't get the dishes done always either. Yeah, so those are different, meditations. These forms of sitting and moving meditation we talked about today, they'll help you learn to focus and clear your mind. They're all techniques that I use, and I would give this as a prescription to anyone trying to get their life straightened out. Eventually, you want to turn everything you do into a meditation, so you're constantly clearing out your mind. When your mind is clear, you let go of your ego, your opinions, and desires. These meditation practices we discuss can help you relax and to overcome stress, anxiety, depression, and this allows you to get off the roller coaster of thoughts and emotions that we sometimes get stuck on. This is a way you can be compassionate to yourself and reduce your own suffering. When you're able to let go of your ego, you become less focused on yourself, and you can become a better listener to the people around you and the world. When you listen carefully, you can better understand other people and develop an increased sense of empathy and goodwill. And when you truly understand other people, you can better relate to their situation. And you'll want to show them the same compassion you've learned to show yourself. If you can practice these things and learn to expand your meditation practice to include everything you do in your life, your mind will always be clear. When your mind is clear, you can begin to recognize the inherent beauty within yourself and realize it's a reflection of everything that surrounds you. Just like I was saying, when you keep the kitchen and the dishes clear. So I hope these ideas are inspiring and the techniques that we discussed and practiced are helpful. I wish you good fortune in this journey, and thank you for coming out tonight.